Hi YouTube. In this video I'm going to be talking about and demonstrating the use of the Steel Mace or the Mace Bell. The Steel Mace is a modern take on the traditional Indian gada. An Indian gada was a weightlifting tool used by wrestlers. You can think of Hanuman, the Hindu deity. He has a mace, he has a club. Indian wrestlers would train with a mace or a gada. Traditional gada would be a bamboo stick with a rock or cement on the end as the weighted head. As I said, this is a modern take on that, where it is made of steel. It has a weighted ball on the end and a metal pole. This allows for rotational weightlifting. Most weightlifting patterns, especially in the West, are linear. You go up and down, you go forward, back. You can think of a squat or a weighted lunge or a bench press. Very linear movements. There is no rotation in them. This allows for rotational weightlifting, which would be very useful in martial arts, which is why the Indian wrestlers would train with one. It's the main movement of this is kind of analogous to a judo, like hip throw, but it is also analogous to throwing a ball or throwing a punch or swinging a hammer or swinging a sword. Rotation shows up everywhere. When we dance, those are usually rotational patterns. Even when we walk, and a exaggerated walk would be that a hip goes forward and a shoulder goes forward, and then the other hip and shoulder, shoulder hip, and that creates a rotational pattern as we move. And so I'm going to show the traditional movements with this. There are a lot of things that can be done with a mace bell. I mainly stick to the overhead swinging, which I'd say is the more traditional movement for it, but you can find people doing all kinds of interesting things with this that at some point start to almost look like dancing or yoga with weights. So to pick this up, it's a linear movement. You would kind of squat down, you grab as close to the head as possible, and then you straighten your knees. Right? I see a lot of people sometimes pick this up by bending forward and then trying to lift with their back. Bad idea. All right, squat, hold as close to the head as you can, lift up. And so, this would be holding it in a neutral position. You could think of this as Tadasana or Samastitihi if you're a yoga person. And right now my right hand is on top, and I'm going to point my right finger, and that's going to indicate the shoulder that I'm going to throw this over. You can see that. And so I'm going to swing this overhead and then back to the starting position. And this is called a 360. And so I'm going to rotate my left shoulder, right, towards the steel mace. So I'm rotating my body to the right, which is the hand that's on top, and I'm going to toss this over my head and then rotate back and bring it back to this starting position. I could imagine that there's a little pocket here. I'm letting my elbows get as straight as comfortable, and I'm holding it here. And so I'm going to, again, rotate, toss it over the shoulder, rotate back to center, and it lands. Rotate, back to center. So this is a 360. I'm going to turn around, rotate towards the mace, toss it over the shoulder, rotate, toss, rotate, toss. I forgot to mention, this steel mace weighs 10 pounds. That is generally the lightest you can find. It's a great weight. I have heavier maces. I don't swing them nearly as much as I swing this one. So I'm going to change the hand that's on top. Now my left hand is on top, and if I point my index finger on the left hand, it is pointing to the right. So that is the shoulder that I'm going to throw it over. So I rotate, toss it over the shoulder, rotate back to center, put it in the pocket. Swing, rotate, and it becomes very fluid. I will turn around again. Rotate towards the mace, toss it over my shoulder, bring it back to center. This is great for shoulder mobility, it's great for grip strength. And I am my spine with every swing. The other movement pattern that's very common with this is called a 10 and 2. And so if you were to imagine that when I was holding it in a neutral position, that could be 12 o'clock on a clock face. 10 o'clock would be roughly here, left shoulder. 2 o'clock would be roughly here, right shoulder. So I'm going to try to take the mace from one of these spots to the other. And it will not rest in the center pocket. I showed a shortcut to lift it up there, right? I lifted, and then I swung it to here. Another way to lift it. So, with my right hand on top, right, I can rotate towards it. I'm going to toss it over my left shoulder. I'm rotating to the right. Swing back. It's at 2 o'clock. This might be reversed due to the camera, but you get the idea of it. Swing. And so I'm rotating with every toss. You can see that I'm not facing the camera at these ending positions. I am just twisting my body right to left. I will turn around. And so there is still this kind of holding point where my elbows are close to my sides and I'm holding it at roughly that 10 o'clock position or the 2 o'clock position. I'll change hands. The hand that's on top will, I don't know if you want to call that the lead arm or the support arm, but either way, it is important to do both hands on top. Twisting with every movement. Again, analogous to throwing a ball, throwing a punch, or if this mace was someone's arm, pulling them over my shoulder in some sort of judo or wrestling type takedown. Okay, so the final thing I'm going to show with this is one-handed swinging. And most of the swinging I do with this is two-handed. But you can swing it with one hand, and it's useful. I would say that the common injury that people get with this is they get elbow pain, they get elbow injuries. And I believe that's in the anconeus muscle here. And the anconeus muscle provides stabilization as the forearm kind of turns in and out, supination, pronation. It also helps with elbow extension. Some people think the anconeus is part of the tricep. It's a funny little muscle. I find one-handed swinging can make the anconeus unhappy. And so if you start swinging one of these and you get elbow pain, it's likely in the anconeus muscle, and it means that you're doing too much volume, too much weight, both, or you're working on one-handed swings prematurely. So I'll pick it up through the squat instead of the shortcut. And so now I'm going to pass it from hand to hand in a 10 and 2 type movement. And so right now my right hand is on top, right, and I'm going to throw it over my left shoulder, and then when it's here, I'm going to switch to my left hand, and I'm going to start tossing it back and forth like that. I'll turn around. As I've been doing this, my back has been cracking at various times, and that is due to the rotation that I'm getting through my spine, and also probably the overhead traction I'm getting by taking my arms overhead. Still twisting towards it with each throw. Here it is. When I'm lifting this on my own, I tend to use a time under tension approach, meaning I don't count sets or reps of how many times I swing this. I set an interval timer, and as the interval goes off, I will change the exercise that I'm doing. So if I were to start with it with my right hand on top, I might start with the 360 movement, and I might do that for 1, 2, 3 minutes. The timer would go, I would change hands, and I would do the 360 movement with the other hand on top for the same amount of time, 1, 2, 3 minutes. And then if the timer goes again, I might switch to the 10 and 2 with one hand, and then the 10 and 2 with the other. And depending on how much time, energy, stamina I have, I'll swing this for anywhere from kind of the minimum I do is 5 minutes to upwards of 20 plus minutes in a single session. And that would be called time under tension. It's very common in kettlebell training. It isn't how many kettlebell swings you can necessarily do, it's can you swing the kettlebell continuously for 1, 2, 5, 10 minutes. So here's a video on the steel mace, the mace bell, the gata. If you do a YouTube or Google search of this tool, these terms, you'll find all kinds of videos. A lot of people create content about this. As I said, one of my favorite weightlifting tools. I use it a lot. It's fun, and I think it trains very important movement patterns into the body that are hard to get elsewhere. So, thank you.